Of course, we all know that global warming is a hoax. Hellwater Fire just made that clear to everyone. It's just the sun. They might disagree in Australia. Seems it's been so hot there. They had to add 2 new colors to the weather map. Ouch! We'll show you the weather map here, and I've placed the Fahrenheit equivalencies to some of the colors to the right here because it's all in Celsius. So pink and purple now cover temperatures over 50 degrees Celsius, should it climb that high. So here's the map for you. I will give you a link to the article here, and it's a Yahoo article. And they point out at the last comment, Australia is the only place battling record high temperatures. Last year, the United States had its warmest year on record. One thing I'd like to say, before I quit, which is going to be very shortly, that you get some of these climate deniers who will say, well, we've had a really extremely cold year here. And I'd kind of like to remind them of balance beams. When you look at a balance beam, you put a weight on one side of the balance beam, right? The other side goes up because it has to balance. When we start screwing with our weather, it's not just a matter of things getting hotter. It's a matter of interrupting the flow of everything. The heat affects the winds, affects the ocean temperature affects the winds. This is what causes greater and greater storms. And yes, one of the results of global warming can be blizzards. So it's not that simple. And Mr. Hellwater Fire, who we've all been entertained by recently, points out that he lives in the cold north of Canada, so he doesn't see why it's where the global warming is. Well, I think he says he lives in Manitoba. I'm not exactly sure where, but, the Arctic is melting. Polar bears are having trouble finding places to live. They're actually moving south, and scientists have found out that polar bears are actually interbreeding with brown bears. Now, they don't really know exactly how long this has been going on, because up until we had a DNA to check this out, we weren't sure. What happened is they found some bears that seemed to have characteristics of both, and when they checked the DNA, they found not only crosses between, that were half polar bear and half brown bear, which is also grizzly bear, by the way, brown bear, grizzly bear, but they also found one animal that I believe was half brown bear and the other half was half and half too. So this animal was on one side brown bear, on the other side brown bear, and polar bear. So perhaps this is a way polar bears are adapting. This is under study. But the ice cap is melting. And because it's melting, all of the nations around it are getting really antsy, because that means there's open water there that people can traverse. Some of you may remember all the tales that you read in history books about the Northwest Passage, all the people who went north to try to find this mysterious Northwest Passage that would allow you to get from the east coast of North America to the west coast of North America across the top of the world. Well, the Northwest Passage didn't exist because it's permanently ice up there. Not so much anymore, and this could be a lot of different countries are claiming the same area, so this could get very interesting. But yeah, apparently Mr. Hellwater Fire is unaware that the Arctic ice cap is melting, which is causing great distress to the polar bears. It's also causing some distress to Northern Territories in Canada, because they depend on the ice road, so the ice road truckers. And the last number of years, the ice hasn't lasted as long as it used to, and it makes it more difficult to get supplies out to these remote locations. These are locations that are much easier to get to during the cold winter via the ice roads than they are during the summer, when you've got to go by boat and deal with a lot of marsh and things like that. So yeah, it's there's no global warming, none whatsoever. It's all a vast conspiracy by hundreds of thousands of scientists all over the world. Ooh, I'm not sure why. Can't be money. Academics don't make that much money. I know, it's just to screw with us. That's it. It's just to screw with us. Vast conspiracy by hundreds of thousands of scientists all around the world just to screw with us. Okay, wait. Thank you very much. Bye. After I finished recording this, I ran into a story at NBC News. Seems that Chicago tomorrow will have its 320th day without an inch of snow. 320 days. This will break a record set in the winter of 1939 to 1940. Now, they've had little dustings of snow, and according to this article, a dusting in Chicago on Sunday brought the snow total for the entire winter to 1.3 inches. So there has not been a single day where an inch of snow or more has fallen in Chicago. 320 days. Remember, there are 365 days in a year. And in the article, a chief meteorologist at NBC Chicago affiliate, Brant Miller, says, "This is a wake-up call of how we may have to adapt." Referring to the process of climate change that contributes to the unusual weather, he says it's not going to be business as usual going forward. Now, take a look at this, and you take a look at what the remarkable heat wave in Australia. Now, I know that these are just two incidences, but these are two amongst many, and they're backed up by a lot of scientific data. I know there are still climate change deniers out there. Most of them are living on the dark side of the moon. They're way out there. There are some decent people who are just fixated on the fact that they believe there's no climate change. And sometimes there's not a lot you can do about that. You can go show them the data over and over and over again, and they don't get it. So I don't lump everybody who's a climate change denier in the same boat as the right-wing religious nuts who really it's strange to me that they're anti-climate change, but they're really kind of anti-science in general. Plus, they tend to be tied with the Republican Party and big business who wants to basically destroy the earth. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but you get what I mean. So there's that group of people, and then there are the people who are on the hell, water, fire end of things that just a little out there. How far, I don't know. Don't really know him. Actually sounds like he'd be a really entertaining guy to sit down and have a beer with. You might hear some really far out fantastic stuff, but I've had beers with people who really do believe they've been abducted by aliens, as well as other rather odd things. You know, there are a lot of people who are just eccentric. There are a lot of people who are just really deluded. There are a lot of people who are living on the dark side of the moon. I think that's where Nibiru has its headquarters, in the dark side of the moon. We can't see it, you see. For those of you who don't quite get that reference, there was a time when, because we couldn't see the other side of the moon, there was speculation as to what was there. Maybe it's a secret civilization or who knows what. So that's kind of a really old reference as far as I know. But the science is solid, and what we're starting to see now is we're starting to see incidents that very strongly reflect the science. And no snow in Chicago, and changing the color map in Australia. Geez, they're going to start beating Death Valley. Anyway, Thanks very much for listening. I'll leave a link to the NBC News article as well in the usual place. And goodbye.